In a village cradled by ancient mountains and whispering forests, there lived a girl named Ilara. She was a ghost in her own home, a silent observer in a world of chatter. Ilara never spoke. Not a single word had passed her lips since she was a small child. The villagers, a close-knit but wary folk, saw her silence as a sign of strangeness. They called her the Whisper, not because she spoke, but because she moved like one, silent and unseen. Ilara's days were spent in the deep woods that bordered the village. While others saw a tangle of shadows and thorns, Ilara saw a world teeming with life and secrets. She had a special connection with nature. The birds would land on her shoulders, their songs filling the silence she carried. The shy deer would eat from her hand, their large, gentle eyes reflecting a trust they gave to no one else. She learned the language of the rustling leaves, the gurgling brook, and the sighing wind. The villagers didn't understand her bond with the wild. They saw her return with bundles of rare herbs and shake their heads. They didn't know that these were the herbs that mysteriously appeared on the doorstep of Old Man Hemlock when his cough grew worse. They didn't see her gently guiding a lost lamb back to its flock under the cover of twilight. They didn't realize that the reason the crows never touched their crops was because Ilara had made a pact with them, offering shiny river pebbles in exchange for their restraint. She was the village's secret guardian, her acts of kindness as silent as she was. Her only friend was a young boy named Leo, the baker's son. He didn't mind her silence. He would bring her warm bread, its crust still crackling, and sit with her by the edge of the forest. He'd talk for hours, telling her about his day, his dreams, and the gossip from the village square. Ilara would listen, her eyes a deep, thoughtful green, and sometimes a small, fleeting smile would grace her lips. It was a smile Leo treasured more than any spoken word. One year the spring rains never came. The sun beat down relentlessly, cracking the earth and withering the crops. The river, once a robust artery of life, dwindled to a sluggish, muddy trickle. The village well ran dry. Fear, a seed of panic, began to sprout in the hearts of the villagers. They prayed, they performed old rituals, but the sky remained a merciless, cloudless blue. The elders spoke of a great drought from generations past, a drought that had nearly wiped the village from existence. Desperation drove them to the brink. Fights broke out over the last drops of water. The once lively village square fell silent, filled only with the heavy air of despair. Leo came to Ilara, his face etched with worry. "The village is dying, Ilara," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "The elders say there's nothing to be done." Ilara looked at him. Then towards the highest peak of the mountains, a formidable spire of rock and ice known as the Dragon's Tooth. She had never ventured that far, but she had heard the whispers of the wind and the ancient trees. They spoke of a hidden spring, a heart of pure water nestled deep within the mountain, a spring that never ran dry. It was said to be guarded by treacherous paths and the mountain's unpredictable temper. Without a moment's hesitation, Ilara turned and walked towards the mountain. Leo, understanding her silent resolve, ran back to the village. "Ilara is going to the Dragon's Tooth," he shouted. "She's going to find water." The villagers scoffed. "That silent girl? What can she do?" "It's a fool's errand. The mountain will claim her." But a few, the ones who had found herbs on their doorsteps or their lost tools, returned, watched her receding figure with a flicker of hope. The climb was more perilous than Ilara could have imagined. Sharp rocks tore at her clothes and skin. Icy winds whipped through the passes, threatening to hurl her into the abyss below. But Ilara was not alone. Her friends from the forest came to her aid. A great eagle circled above, showing her the safest path. Mountain goats appeared as if from nowhere, their hooves sure-footed, guiding her across treacherous ledges. She followed the subtle signs of nature, a patch of resilient moss, the direction of a cool breeze, the song of a bird she had only heard in the highest altitudes. These were her map and compass. After 2 days of relentless climbing, exhausted and bruised, she found it. Tucked away in a hidden grotto, shimmering under a beam of light that pierced through a crack in the rock, was a pool of the clearest water she had ever seen. It was the heart of the mountain. Water cascaded from the rock face above, feeding the pool before disappearing into an underground river. Ilara saw that a massive rockslide had blocked the channel that once fed the village river. It was an impossible task for one person. But as she stood there, a deep rumble echoed through the grotto. The mountain itself seemed to be in pain, its lifeblood choked. Ilara placed her hand on the cold stone wall. She closed her eyes and didn't think, she felt. She poured all her gratitude, all her love for the land, all her silent pleas into that touch. She asked the mountain for help, not with words but with the pure intent of her heart. A tremor shook the ground. Small pebbles began to shift, then larger rocks. With a deafening groan, a section of the rock slide gave way, opening a new path for the water. A powerful torrent burst forth, carving a new channel down the mountainside, racing towards the thirsty valley below. Back in the village, a low rumble was heard, then a miracle. Water, cool and clear, began to flow into the dry riverbed. It started as a trickle, then a stream, and finally a joyful, rushing river. A collective gasp, then a roar of disbelief and elation erupted from the villagers. They ran to the river, splashing their faces, drinking deeply, laughing and crying with relief. A day later, Ilara returned. She was no longer the invisible girl. As she walked into the village square, a path opened for her. The people who had once shunned her now looked at her with awe and reverence. The village elder, a man with a face like a weathered map, approached her. He bowed his head deeply. "You saved us," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "We were blind and you showed us the way. Can you ever forgive us?" Ilara looked at the faces around her, faces filled with gratitude, shame, and a newfound respect. She saw Leo, his smile brighter than the sun. And for the first time in years, she felt the need for a sound. It started as a faint hum in her chest, a vibration that traveled up her throat. She opened her mouth and a sound emerged. It wasn't a word, but a note. A single, clear, musical note that resonated with the joy of the flowing river, the song of the birds, and the rustle of the leaves. It was the most beautiful sound they had ever heard. It was the sound of acceptance, of forgiveness, of a heart finally finding its voice. From that day on, Ilara wasn't silent. She didn't speak in sentences or stories, but she would sing. Her songs, wordless melodies taught to her by the wind and the water, filled the village, weaving a magic of their own. She was no longer the whisper. She was the song of the village, a living legend who had taught them that the deepest kindness and the greatest strength often come without a single word. Thank you for watching, and if this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe for more.